Joining us today. I know you're joining as I'm talking, but this is the 12th MEA Virtual Mastery class, and the very first time that we've opened it up to our whole community, which is really exciting. So hello to all the familiar faces and smiles of our alumni. You can wave, and to all the new faces that we haven't seen here before. There are over 350 people that have registered for this call. So that's remarkable. And we're so happy that you're here. You've tuned in from all over the US, Canada, the UK, Germany, Australia. And so please, if you haven't already, put your screen in gallery view. It's on that. We're all Zoom experts by now, but if you don't know where that is, top right of your screen, it's gallery view or speaker view. So if you put it in gallery view, you'll be able to see all the faces, and there's pages of them. So once we get started, you can switch back to speaker view. I want to take you all off of mute for just a second because it's so nice to get everybody to say hello and bring your beautiful energy up into this call. So you can unmute yourselves and say hello. And
hello.
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 Oh, so good to have you. Okay, I'm going to mute again. Sorry about that, but thank you for, oops, mute all. Okay. I love that. Can you feel that when everybody's energy gets up in here? It's just really, really, really nice and a great way to start. So our very special guest today is Mark Nepo, a poet and spiritual philosopher. He's best known for his #1 New York Times bestseller, Book of Awakening, and written at least 11 other books. I'm not sure, but the latest is Book of Soul. This one has been a daily companion for me the last couple of years. I love this, highly recommended. Big, huge fan, as I'm sure most of you are today and will be after our hour together. So without further ado, I want to pass the mic to Jeff Hamaoui, our Director of Education here at MEA. And he's going to introduce Mark more fully and interview him. We are planning a Q&A after the interview. So if you have questions, put them in the chat box and we will hope to get to all of them during Q&A. The chat is right in the middle of your screen at the bottom. So please use that and we'll get to you during Q&A. So with that, take it away, Jeff. And I think you might be muted. Unmute. Okay.
You unmuted me, I muted me. It's all good. Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. I know we're all muted, so I'm just assuming the return. It's a thrill to have Mark here. Instead of a meditation, I was actually hoping, Mark, we could ask you to just kick us off with one of your poems, especially as everyone's still coming in and so on.
Yeah,
and so
yeah. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Leslie. It's wonderful to be with you all. A joy, really. So I want to open with with a poem of mine called "The Lesson." When young, it was the first fall from love. It broke me open the way lightning splits a tree. Then years later, cancer broke me further. This time, it broke me wider the way a flood carves the banks of a narrow stream. Then, having to leave a 20-year marriage, this broke me the way wind shatters glass. Then in Africa, it was the anonymous face of a schoolboy beginning his life. This broke me yet again, but this was like hot water melting soap. Each time I tried to close what had been opened, it was a reflex natural enough, but the lesson was, of course, the other way, in never closing again.
As an aspiring poet, Mark, I just wish you'd stop doing that. That was stunning. It's so annoying that you're not good.
Thank you.
Okay. Wow. Well, first of all, let's just sort of level set. Let's start with where we are right now. How are you doing in this time of coronavirus?
Yeah, yeah,
Crazy.
thank you. You know, I'm doing well, and I'm feeling just, a dozen feelings at once every day, as I'm sure everyone is. And I find it very immediate, raw, strange that the moments here at home. Uh, my wife Susan is a potter, and we have a very spoiled yellow lab and no children. Um, these moments are more precious, and yet um, we're in the midst of such chaos and suffering everywhere. And I think one of the things, some folks know from my work that I'm a long-term cancer survivor. I mean, over 30 years. And I've been brought back to that journey unexpectedly through all this. And I think the first way to share is that, years ago, over 30 years ago, when I was first diagnosed, I walked into a doctor's office, and he told me I had a rare form of lymphoma. And I thought, well, other than he must be having the wrong folder and talking to the wrong guy, um, I was, of course, stunned, frightened. And as I went to leave that doctor's office, the door I had come through to keep that appointment was gone. There was no way back to life before that appointment. And that comes back to me now because I feel that this has happened to the human tribe on earth, everywhere. The old world is gone. There is no world to go back to, and we need each other to live into and imagine what comes next.
Mm. We did a kind of a preparatory call for this, and I was asking you then, and I'm still kind of stuck on this, a question around practice is easy in easy times, right? If you like to meditate, if you like to sort of do things that are good for your health or whatever, how in the face of these catastrophic events, whether they're personal or global, do you keep yourself centered? What is it that you do to kind of keep practicing even in the face of the hardest of things?
Well, I agree that we practice for real life. And if we're present enough, the practice moment opens and drops us into real life. And I think that I agree that practice is for, I need to be still when I'm agitated. I need to find safety when I'm afraid. And so I feel like the things, whatever they might be in my toolbox, we all have them, and I can share a few. But I think it's always an awareness for me of returning. When I fall down, I have to get up. When I'm confused, I have to settle and become clear. When I can't find my way, I have to reach for some loved one or someone who's more centered than I am. And expecting that the moments of centeredness will stay moments. I mean, that if I am centered, I'll be afraid again tomorrow and the day after that. And so it's like living at sea where the waves keep being choppy. Somehow we have to find our long-term equilibrium. For me, holding and listening are two ancient and ever-present resources in medicines. There isn't a time in my life that I have listened or been listened to. I might hear things I don't want to hear, but there hasn't been a time I have listened or listened to that it hasn't restored me in some way. So when I am feeling all over the place, or frightened, or agitated, or worried, or angry, I try to hold nothing back and give my full, complete presence to whatever is before me until I start to drop below my agitation, below my fear, not run from it, but move through it.
Mm. Wow, there's a trick if you can pull it off.
Well, and also about not needing to do any of it perfectly.
Yeah. There is a relationship for you though with creativity. We're not really going to talk too much about your poetry, but art and creativity as a way into that. Can you maybe sort of share how you use the act of creation?
Yeah, and so one of my books in the last few years, Drinking from the River of Light, focuses on the life of expression, not in a way that we will be better creators, but that process, that introspective, inhabited, embodied process is healing and life-giving and sustaining regardless of what we quote create. And this clearly came to me that to see creativity that way after my cancer journey and almost dying from cancer. And I find that that I'm very interested in that process, not because of creativity, but because of where it takes us. And so it's not by accident that what is not expressed is depressed. What is not expressed is depressed. And so to me, it's a way that the heart, the way we breathe. So we breathe, we have to inhale and exhale. You can't say, we're just going to say for this interview, well, we'll only inhale. And the heart, the way the heart breathes is that we feel and perceive, and then we have to express. And likewise, we have to keep doing that. I encourage everyone to find their, you might express by gardening, you might express by stamp collecting, you might express by playing with your dog or your children, you might express through words or song or dance or listening to classical music, but we all need some form of expression, because if all we do is inhale and not express, we will turn blue.
Seems sort of just delightfully simple, right? Just find some way of what the hell is going on with you right now. Yeah. And for you, is there a sort of a correlation with the creativity of that expression, or is it just any form of expression?
It's really any form of expression. For me, being in this space of I've often feel that writing is listening and taking notes, and I think that the way that I've always entered the writing space before I knew meditation, I think in all traditions in meditation we're encouraged to drop our thoughts. Well, once I get through the noise level, I just take notes and then work with what comes through as my teacher. So I like to say I retrieve poems and metaphors and stories and books, and then I have to work with them. I'm blessed to be prolific because I write about what I don't know. If I only wrote about what I knew, I would have written very little.
Yeah, and I find this idea of like using the creative process or whatever it is to kind of excavate yourself really interesting, right? To find these ideas and use them as teachers. You've said this a couple of times.
Yeah, and a great example of a really heroic example for me is Beethoven. Beethoven was this, obviously we know, this extraordinary genius. He brought music into the world that no one had ever heard. But Beethoven went deaf by the time he was 28.
Mm-hmm.
And so in his 20s, as he realized he was going deaf, imagine how difficult. You're going to bring music, unprecedented music into the world, and you're never going to hear it played. And it depressed him. It drove him into a deep turmoil. And in 1802, he went away on an ostensible retreat outside of Vienna, but he was really contemplating suicide. And in Heiligenstadt, a small town outside of Vienna, he started writing what was to be a suicide note. But this is the power of authentic expression. By the time he got to the end of it, of how hard this is, how he couldn't bear it, instead of concluding he would kill himself, he wound up writing, so I'm going to go back to Vienna and make the most music I can with what I have for as long as I can. Because of the power of just expressing, letting that come through, the truth. If we can be truthful about our own experience, that in itself is restorative and medicinal.
So there's this act of creation and creativity that can help us sort of uncover, help us express. You also talk about this idea of us being in a global Sabbath. What's that all about?
Well, I think one of the things that's happened here, you know, the word Sabbath in the Jewish tradition means literally the one day we don't turn one thing into another. And it feels like we have all been forced into a global Sabbath. We've been forced to stop. We've been forced to stop running from here to there, to stop planning, to stop scheming, to stop even dreaming, to stop running and bending and manipulating. We've been forced to stop, to take in life as it is, to take in ourselves as we are, to take in each other as it is. And it's going to be amazing to see what comes from that. I think Jeff froze there for a moment.
Let's see. Oh, no. Come on. I know he's in the middle of, he may be coming.
Well, yeah, so let me talk a little bit more about that while he's coming back on. That, you know, being forced to stop, you know, I learned also from my cancer journey that, you know, cancer is just a disease, but what was more important is what's opened in us than what opens us. And this remains to be the question of this time with this pandemic. The virus is a very scary disease, but it remains to be seen how are we going to be opened? What are we going to do going forward? How will we behold each other? How will we realize yet again that we are each other and that what happens to one happens to all? You know, in the Hindu tradition, there is a term, thou art that, which means, yes, we will find through love and suffering that we are each other, that we are each other. And I also feel that in this time, you know, when, as I mentioned, that the old world is gone, well, that engenders a lot of loss. And some of you might be familiar with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the mother of modern hospice movement. The hospice has been going on forever, but certainly she was remarkable. And in her 5 stages of grief, which don't happen sequentially, we bounce around, but they are anger, denial, bartering, let's make a deal. You know, I'll pray to God now if you just get me out of this, and depression and acceptance. And I think that we have whole pockets of our society that are stuck in different phases of the passages of grief. We have a huge pocket of our society that are stuck in denial. No, the old world is still here. I'm going to prove it. Let's go to the beach. Let's go to the bar. It's not true. And we have a whole group of people that are stuck in anger. How dare you make me wear a mask? I'm not going to wear a mask. And what are we protesting? Biology? Gravity? So like it or not, we need each other. We need each other more than ever. You know, we originally, when we were talking, I was I was giving a theme to our talk as the keepers of kindness. And what I mean by that is that, you know, light and dark have always been a part of existence. And they have a relationship because light will always fill every crack. And this is the relationship between kindness and pain. Kindness will flow like light and fill every pain. And so, you know, one of the things, you know, you imagine that months ago, right, somewhere at the subatomic level, one atom slightly shifted in relation to another, and there was COVID racing around the world. Well, we need kindness and love and care to move as quickly as disease. We need give to move as quickly as take. Welcome back, Jeff.
Did you miss me, Mark?
Yes.
Not at all. He's been just.
Well, let me just finish this thought, and then please join me back. Come back in. And so, you know, if you look back, and I had done a book, More Together Than Alone, on community, history of community, and across cultures. You know, the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages in Europe, which were only dark in Europe. The rest of the world was doing quite well, thank you. But during those 200 or 300 years, only 10% of the European population was literate. So 90% of the European population couldn't read or write, and 10% kept literacy alive for 300 years. And so what I offer to you when we talk about this aliveness of care and kindness and that we need each other is that it is incumbent on us right now to keep the literacy of the heart alive, to not vanish, to be caring and open and find the strength in our caring. You know, in the Chinese tradition, there is a fundamental notion of relationship known as Ren, R-E-N. And Mencius, who was a philosopher in the 300-400s BC, he had this beautiful way. He said, I can't really tell you what it means, but it means this. If there's a child on the edge of a well and that child's about to fall, whatever it is in you that makes you jump up and run to grab that child before they fall in the well, that's Ren. That's basic to all humanity. Now, let me stop there. Please come back in, Jeff.
I feel like I may have missed stuff, so I'll just keep plowing on and we'll see how we mesh together. So you talked about one or two of your books already. Mark, you've written 22 books, right?
Yes, yeah.
I heard you in an interview once say that there was a revelation during your time, the time you had cancer, that kind of is what you're exploring every time you write a book. Is that still the case, or yeah?
Yeah.
What is it that drives you to write all?
Well, it's just wanting to be as alive as possible and to continue to learn and continue to feel enlivened. So, you know, like any young artist, young poet, young writer, you know, we're all taught to, you know, look for good material. Well, you know, after almost dying and being turned inside out and upside down, I learned that, well, everything is good material if I'm present enough. It's not about good material, it's about being open and present enough to be in conversation with the miracle of what is, for all of its messiness and pain and joy and difficulty. And so, you know, it's not one of the books that I have started is the book that I finished.
Right.
Not at all. You know, because once it comes alive, it leads me. It becomes my curriculum. And I share that not because for people in writing, but because that parallels, you know, very key to the whole modern Elder Academy, to the work. That's the work of inhabiting ourself and our relationship to the rest of life is whatever You know, the word trust literally means follow your heart. So when we follow our heart, it opens up the next curriculum in our evolvement and embodiment and inhabiting of being here together.
Yeah. And you've just published a book recently, right? In May of this year, you published a
Yes.
book.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. And was it a COVID book, or had it sort of been gestated before and emerged during
No,
COVID?
it was gestated before, and it's called The Book of Soul, 52 Paths to Living What Matters. And it's more like scattering seeds. There were 52 because as some of you know, I invite my readers to take their time and not just read through the whole book, but to read a chapter, live your life, read a chapter, live your life. And so there are 52 chapters to invite it to be a weekly practice. But the book is really about, it's about two things. You know, one is the metaphor that opened me to this book is the metaphor of labor, of giving birth. You know, we're all here, thank God, because our mothers endured physical labor. And, you know, my mother's gone now, but when I was an undergraduate in college, I saw a documentary about an actual birth, you know, childbirth. Oh my, you know, I got out of there and I called my mother up and said, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my Lord. And then, so the metaphor is that once we're here, we undergo a second labor, which is the journey of a lifetime of experience through which the soul is birthed on earth. And so the book tries to look at archetypal points in that passage. You know, I've said when we were talking earlier, Jeff, you know, I don't have any answers, and what I share are examples, not instructions. And so the learning for me from the latest book, the last chapter, is called The Temple is the World. And we all, you know, we all have special relationships and sacred gathering places, and whether they're formal or informal, whether they're sanghas or temples or mosques or churches or community centers. But that's all an apprenticeship, because the temple is the world. It's so those walls come down. It's not just, well, we can incubate our aliveness together in those spaces. How do we be who we are everywhere?
We at this academy and in our community, we talk a lot about wisdom and how wisdom is shared. After 22 books, how do you avoid giving instruction? What is the trick in life to avoid giving instruction and using examples and whatever other tools you use so that it actually is helpful and illuminating to people?
Well, I think for me, it is, you know, D.H. Lawrence has a line in a poem that says, "Not I, but the wind that blows through me." And, you know, I think at our best, whether we write things down or not, we are conduits for life force. And so, you know, I feel like I'm an inner explorer, and my books are kind of trail maps. And, you know, they're not the only trails, they're just the trails that I've found. And you might find trails off them, or you might find other trails. And so, you know, it's really, I think, you know, just I honestly just have always accepted that, you know, I don't really know where things are going, and I need, you know, I'll answer it this way. You know, Denise Levertov, remember Denise Levertov, a wonderful, amazing, actually she was British born but spent most of her time in America, great poet, died maybe 15, 20 years ago. And she has a poem called The Secret. And I can just tell you what the poem, I won't recite it, but it's about, she is giving a poetry reading at a college, and before the reading, two young women, undergraduates, come running up to her, all bubbly, enthusiastic, and they say, thank you, we found the secret of life in a line of one of your poems, thank you so much. And then they run away. And the poem is, she says, well, wait a minute, wait. You didn't tell me the secret. You didn't even tell me what poem it's in. Wait. And this is that it's all in that beautiful little story, that just because things come through me or someone else doesn't mean that I have the meaning, or that I even know where it is. That we need each other to uncover the meaning and to hold each other up when we fall down.
There are moments talking to you, Mark, where you say things and it's just like there's this sort of resonance to them that's just that I completely like hear you and feel you and agree. When you find a thought like that, can you feel it? When you uncover a thought like that, are you like, oh my goodness, this one is phenomenal?
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely. And again, I feel like I discover them rather than that they're mine. It's like going along the shore and discovering a beautiful shell that's come up. And so, I've always, when I see, I'm a constant scribbler, and when I've always been my whole life, and when I see or I hear a piece of conversation or see a moment, for no reason, light illumines a piece of broken glass in an alley in New York City, and it grabs me, and then I have to stop. What is it? And then the way that I try to uncover what it's carrying is by writing and seeing what's there. So there's a metaphor or a story or a truth or a confusion or a pain or a question. But that goes back to the Beethoven example, that just being truthful about what comes to us and through us leads us even further.
So you've written all these books, you've created all of this, you've curated all of these discoveries. And there's this expectation around you, right? People are looking to you, whether you want to be a teacher or not, they're looking to that from you. And yet you fart, you get annoyed, you get pissed off with people, you are human. How do you manage those narratives together, right? The person that can sort of create these beautiful thoughts and practices and things for people, and at the same time, just all the chewiness of being a human being.
Well, I think there's nothing. Yes, I'm very human, and I think that I believe that it is through our humanness that we access spirit. Yeah. We can transcend, and we can go up in our heads, and we can get a 30,000 foot view, and that's useful, but that's not embodied. That's not embodied, and so it is when I feel whatever it is I feel to the depths, as far as I can take it in me, then I trip into the well of all spirit. Now, this is why if I go deep enough into me, I find you. And if you go deep enough into me, you find me.
And so again, and you find that perspective just through writing? Do you do other things? Are there other practices that you do that allow you to kind of go in that inner journey?
Well, I think all of us are challenged to develop a practice of staying awake.
Yeah.
And that involves, no one can stay awake permanently. I mean, just look, we have to sleep every night. So my heart has to sleep every so often, and so does my spirit and my mind. And so the question is, and for this, I think that we can go to whales and dolphins as teachers. So we take for granted, these mammoth creatures, they're air-breathing creatures. So no matter how long they can stay under, they have to breach surface. But they can't stay on the surface, because if they're out of water too long, they need to rebaptize themselves, if you will, in the deep. So they have to break surface and they have to go in the deep. So the teaching is, so to us. We have no choice as spirits in bodies and time on earth to immerse ourselves in the deep and to break surface in the world. So the question is, what is your personal rhythm? What is your personal equilibrium? So a question we can offer anyone who's with us today is, can you take some time and journal on your own next week, whenever? Are you spending too much time in the deep? Are you spending too much time in the world? What is the balanced rhythm for you to renew yourself in the deep and to come back and breach and bring that back into the world?
Can you say that again for us all?
Yeah, so can you journal in your own personal way? Are you spending too much time in the deep, or are you spending too much time in the world, avoiding the deep? Because you have to do both. As much as we fall in love with the deep, if you stay down there, you'll drown. And similarly, too much in the world, you have to renew your spirit and your heart and your mind. So what is your personal rhythm? What is the balance, the equilibrium of balance regarding surface and depth in your own life? And then this is where we start to develop our personal toolkit. If you recognize that you're in the deep too much, how do you surface? What do you turn to? Who do you turn to? What do you do that brings you back up? And if you're too much in the world, what do you do? What can you turn to when you recognize it to bring you back down and re-enter the depth and your direct connection with life?
You head to the kitchen? All right, I'm head over.
Sharon, can you mute, please, love? Thank you. Leslie, can you mute Sharon?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So, Mark, before we close on a final poem and go to sort of the open question section, talk to us a little bit about managing uncertainty. You've been like on the uncertainty roller coaster for a good chunk of your life. So you're good at it.
Well, I think the thing is that I would, I don't know that I've ever been able to manage certainty. I think I've had to learn how to ride it the way a fish rides the current. I think I've learned, so I think, and uncertainty, this is one thing that we're being asked today too, is to become more intimate with uncertainty. Because we've been taught, I think, at an out of balance way in the modern world to believe that uncertainty only brings catastrophe and pain. Now, certainly the unknown brings difficult things, of course, but it also brings beauty and wonder and surprise and love. And after all, there isn't one person that I have been blessed to be loved by in my life that I ever planned to meet.
Yeah.
So how do we, I think part of the global Sabbath, part of being forced to stop, part of leaning into the new world and leaning into each other, is we have to become intimate yet again with the unknown. And it takes a quiet kind of courage to let the unknown be our teacher, so we can start to see, not to manage uncertainty, but to stay in conversation with it. And so the things that I do is, most fear gets its power from not looking and from the future and the past. So when I get caught up in uncertainty in an agitated way, I stop, and however awkwardly, and I try to be present where I am. Usually breathing helps. Sometimes writing helps. Sometimes listening to music helps. Sometimes calling up a dear friend and saying, I'm not doing good, just tell me a story. I don't care what, just tell me a story. Anything. What'd you do today? What didn't you do today? So that I can break out of the agitation of my self-reference.
Mm.
Not blaming I'm human. We talked about that messy humanness. Everyone will have the agitation of self-reference, not because we're evil or egomaniacs or stupid, but because we're human.
Yeah.
So the question is, this is the work, I think, of self-awareness. What do we do when we suddenly recognize it? Where do we go? What's in our toolbox? Who can we turn to so that we can regain that equilibrium of depth and surface that will keep us whole?
Mark, I'm gonna close our interview section of this. I'm so grateful for you to just spending this time with us, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to spend a week with you. This is gonna be so
me
cool.
too. Me too. I'm so looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, let me bridge us with this poem.
Beautiful.
This is a poem called "If You Want a True Friend," and then we'll move into our question and answer time. If you want a true friend, just open your hands and say, "I don't know." Say it softly and wait, so your other can see that you mean it. Give them a chance to drop what they think is secret. Let them come up with a cup of what matters from the spring they show no one. Let them sigh and admit that they don't know either. Then you can begin with nothing in the way. Go on, admit to the throb you carry in your heart, and let the journey begin.
Christina, take it away, my love.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
I'm a bit speechless, so give me a moment. But I'd like to start by welcoming everyone who hasn't been on these calls before, whether you're alumni coming on for the first time or it's the first time you're joining us because we've opened this to the broader community. We're just thrilled to have everyone here. And again, Mark, thank you. It's such a treat to have you here.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I do have a few questions that came through the chat while we've been talking. I'll start you with a softball, I think. How long per day do you meditate? This came from Jack and Donna Abbott.
Yeah, thank you. So for me,
Donna Jones.
I don't, I mean, if I am, like we said, agitated or feeling off center, I will consciously practice meditation. But at this point in my life, for me, I'm trying to have an integrated practice of many practices. I'm trying to consciously integrate it into what I do all the time. So I try to meditate when, you know, I'm in the grocery line and I'm impatient, you know, or when I'm, you know, at the gas station and I'm trying to be safe and no one around me is wearing a mask but me. Yeah, what do I do? How do I center? So that's how I meditate. Now the space that I am in writing when I'm listening, I suppose that is also a form of meditation. And I start every day. I'm a morning person. And so I'm up every day and spend, you know, 2 or 3 hours in my study where I am right now, with my dog right near me, just being and listening and exploring.
Is your dog with you right now?
And no, she's not because she's with my wife in her pottery studio.
Fair enough. So in your kind of bag of practice tricks, you'd say that there's a more standard meditation and then there's almost like a living grocery store meditation or gas. Yeah, great. Let's see, what else do we have? This one came from Pat Whitty, who is an alumni and definitely on my favorite list. Can you please elaborate on your comment in the beginning that you write what you don't know about? I'm curious about that because you may have opened up some opportunities for me to write about a lot of stuff. And that came from that.
Well, thank you. Well, I think that, this, when we go back into school, we're taught logically and rationally. When we start to learn how to write, you write with an introductory sentence, you say what you're going to say, then you say it, and then you conclude by saying what you said. And you don't write until you know what you're going to say. Well, quite honestly, that's all backwards. I have learned that expression as a ongoing holy way of learning involves, the writing is merely a means of staying in conversation with life and the universe. And so when I feel something, when I'm confused, when I'm excited, when I'm afraid, when I'm delighted, I need to give my attention, and I do that through questions. And life will respond.
Mm.
And I will feel it before I understand it. And so then I got to ask another question. And before I know it, there's a lot of words behind me.
You're going to fit right in with us down in Mexico. We certainly embrace curiosity as one of our core values. We like to think it makes us nicer people too, not just opens the door, but spending time with a curious person is a lot more open-minded way to be. So I also look forward to having you down with us.
Oh, thank you.
I have now a question from Reverend Dr. Diane Johnson. And she starts by saying, thank you so much for all of your stunning, heart-opening work. I use your poems in my cultural transformation and diversity, equity, and inclusion work. Can you share some of your thoughts on the intersections of spirit, belonging, and racial justice work, and what those with privilege and resources can feel and do related to social justice?
Well, that's a great question. And again, I don't have answers, and I'm still learning a lot myself in all of that, in that intersection. I would offer, though, that I think all the spiritual traditions that at their real heart level, all are built on an inclusion and a recognition that we are here, that we are each other, and we're here to care for each other, and that we're more together than alone. And so any racial curriculum and needed work, any tradition from its heart center can support that work, because this is, and it's not by accident that great love and great suffering tear down our walls and let us know that we are each other. I would also say that, right now I am with so much going on in the world, I am so heartened by our young people all over the world at great risk and with great courage, calling for justice, protesting nonstop. And I do feel that it's a confluence of many things, including the pandemic has broken so many people open, I think, beyond where people can just hold racial injustice as an idea. It's more people are feeling it than ever before. I'll just, and I know I haven't given very much here to this very deep, wonderful question, but let me just close this part or bookmark it here. One of the things that Martin Luther King Jr., he said so many amazing things, but one of the things that so touches me, I've been thinking about recently, is he said that I believe that the other-centered will build up what the self-centered have torn down.
Mm.
And I think we're on the verge of that.
I love you said great love and great suffering tear down our walls.
Yes, yes.
I think that I would like to wrap us on that, because it's such a beautiful way to come back to talking about community. I think Leslie is going to take us through a few announcements. We've got some announcements for you, Mark. Again, I want to welcome and thank everyone who spent this time with us. Mark, thank you. Leslie, another great job organizing. And I must say, personally, I'm always inspired by watching Jeff be delighted and inspired by someone. So
onto you, Leslie. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Mark. Wow. That was wonderful. I feel so full. I hope everybody does feel the same. So a few announcements. I just, seriously, I'm like, I can't even, I'm just so sitting in all of that. So it's hard to go like to the facts and to the, to the announcements, but I'll do my best. Again, for everybody that was here, is here new to MEA. And if you liked this, there's a lot more information about MEA and our Baja community and all of our workshops that are coming up this year on our website, modernelderacademy.com. We have a stellar lineup of guest faculty, including Mark Nepo and Jeff Hamaoui, as I mentioned earlier. They're going to be teaching May 24th through the 29th of next year. Imagine 5 days of this. Oh my God. So there is still space, and this one will fill quickly. So please go online, apply through the website. Mark, you're also offering a couple of your own programs coming up. You might want to tell us a little bit about those, and I'll put
Sure. Yeah, thank you. And I'm so looking forward to next May being with Jeff and Chip and everyone at the Modern Elder Academy. So I have a couple of things that are coming up. August 29th is a Saturday from 1 to 3. I will be offering online a free reading and conversation, and you can sign up for that at live.marknepo.com. And once we get through the 29th, we'll take all that down, and September 1, you'll be able to register if you're interested. I'll be offering in October a 3-session webinar on 3 successive Sundays, October 4, 11, and 18. And that will be focused on more together than alone, the power and spirit of community. And so that will, all the details and information will be up and ready to go on September 1. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you so much. And I did put that link in the chat box, everybody, if you want to just grab that and go to Mark's live registration and for more information, but I'll be tuning into those. I think we have one more announcement, Christine, that you have the honor to share with us. It's a special award that we give to one of our alumni quarterly. So I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are.
I hate that moment when you're muted and you're really into it and you're sharing and then you have to rewind and start over. So I commend everyone's emerging Zoom fluidity. So we do have an award that we give quarterly to an alumni or someone who's part of our community. And it's for inspired service to the community in one way or another. And we call this the Pearl Award. For those of you who haven't spent time with us yet, and I trust that we all will be spending time together at some point, the way that we recognize moments that land for us when we are in the workshop, clapping can be sort of disruptive. We recognize that thing that has been said or shared by polishing the pearl of wisdom. And so this refers back to that pearl of wisdom, and our award is called the Pearl. The person who's receiving the Pearl Award this year is very dear to all of us. I will tell you, those tiny moments that stick with you forever. At one point, he said to me, and of course I'm paraphrasing and I'll never do it justice, but that he would be so pleased if his daughter turned out like me. And I can tell you it is one of the greatest compliments I've ever received in my entire life. Here's an excerpt from the very first guest blog post he did for Wisdom Well. I'll give you his name in a minute. Down in Baja at the Modern Elder Academy, metaphors and waking dreams spread like wildfire. They're in sunrises and sunsets, turtles and sticks, guacamole, margaritas, and frijoles. Bill Appleblossom has kept the fire burning for so many of us, whether it's his help in editing the Wisdom Well, which he really has been instrumental in creating and editing and keeping going, being part of our community. And he does that for free. That is a service that he offers to us. His role on the MEA Alumni Advisory Board, his continued connection and inspiration to both cohorts and that he's been a part of, or just his insatiably infectious laugh. And that last paragraph was from Chip Conley. I want to salute his relentlessly sunny disposition and the fact that he deeply honored me by telling me that he hoped that his daughter would turn out like me. He also discovered guacamole while he was with us in his time in Baja, which we will never stop being entertained by, that he had made it through an American life without trying guacamole. Bill Appleblossom, are you on here? Can you raise your hand? Leslie, can you help me find him? Tell me he didn't drop off.
He's here, Christine. I can see him. He just needs unmuting. Bill, unmute yourself.
I'm here.
Bill, we adore you. And if everyone unmute everyone so that we can give him a round.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if we can have everyone mute themselves again so we can have a few words from our inspired guacamole padre. You are a wordsmith. We're not afraid to put you on the spot this way, Bill. Come on.
Seriously, I have nothing to say. I have absolutely nothing. I'll tell you this. I'm very touched. I was very, very. I still believe that, Christine. I still want my daughter to grow up exactly like you, and being a part of the Modern Elder Academy has meant the world to me. From the day I went, coming back as an alumni for Alumni Week to this moment, to seeing faces that I don't even know, people I do know, it means a lot to me. And so thank you for letting me be a part of it, contribute any way I can. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Bill, thank you. We can't thank you enough for your service. Pearl Award means that you get nothing, but
I love nothing.
all our love.
So maybe even your theme song, everything's better with Bill.
Everything's better with Bill. Jeff, can I pass back to you to wrap us up, or have we lost you?
No, I'm here. Just again, thanks to Mark Nepo. Looking forward to seeing him as soon as is humanly possible. And thanks to all of you for joining us, and have a wonderful month. We'll see you again in a month's time. We'll be announcing a speaker in the next couple of weeks, and it should be interesting and exciting. So stay tuned.